The rain pounded against the diner's windows, a steady rhythm that matched the weight in Maggie's chest. She was no stranger to long shifts at Haven Street Diner, surrounded by the usual hustle and bustle of Chicago, the chatter of customers, the sizzle from the kitchen, the scent of coffee and fried food. But tonight felt different. The diner was quieter, almost empty. A trucker sat in the corner nursing his beer, while a college student hunched over his laptop, lost in his studies. As Maggie wiped down the counter, movement outside caught her eye. Near the entrance, a small figure sat in a wheelchair, barely 8 years old, his thin frame wrapped in a worn-out blanket. Rain soaked his dark hair, and he shivered against the cold. Maggie's heart clenched. Without hesitation, she grabbed a towel and hurried outside, her shoes splashing against the wet pavement. "Hey, sweetie," she said gently, crouching beside him. Her voice was soft despite the storm raging around them. "What are you doing out here all alone?" The boy lifted his gaze, his wide blue eyes filled with hesitation. "I'm waiting for someone," he murmured. Maggie glanced up and down the street. Nothing. No one. Just the rain and the empty sidewalks. She knelt beside him, instinct taking over. "You can't stay out here in this weather. Come inside with me, okay? It's warm, and I have something special for you." The boy hesitated for a moment before nodding shyly. Maggie smiled and wheeled him inside, settling him near the radiator. She draped the towel over his shoulders, rubbing his arms lightly to warm him up. "I'm Maggie," she said, offering him a reassuring smile. "What's your name?" "Tommy," he replied, a small, hesitant smile forming. Maggie's grin widened. "Nice to meet you, Tommy. How about some grilled cheese?" She didn't wait for an answer, already heading to the kitchen. A few minutes later, she returned with a steaming plate and a mug of tomato soup, setting them in front of him. "This one's on me," she said, tucking a napkin into his lap. Tommy took a bite, his face lighting up as the cheese stretched in gooey strings. "This is the best thing I've ever had," he said with wonder. Maggie chuckled, sitting across from him. They talked about superheroes, cartoons, anything to keep that happy sparkle in his eyes. As they laughed, a warmth spread through Maggie, easing the tiredness she had carried all day. Her grandmother had always taught her that kindness mattered, and tonight, she understood why. What Maggie didn't know was that across the street, a sleek black Bentley sat parked, its windshield streaked with rain. Inside, Victor Grayson, the CEO of Grayson Technologies, watched through the diner's window. His sharp gray eyes were locked on Tommy and the woman who had so effortlessly cared for him. At 45, Victor had seen the world. Power, wealth, influence. But in Maggie's simple act of kindness, he saw something rare. Something he hadn't encountered in years. A warmth that stirred something deep inside him. And he knew, in that moment, that her life was about to change forever. Victor sat in the back of his Bentley, lost in thought as the city lights flickered outside the tinted windows. He had spent years negotiating billion-dollar deals, making decisions that shaped industries. Yet tonight, his mind wasn't on business. It was on a waitress, a complete stranger, who had shown his son kindness without hesitation. There was something about her, something rare. A warmth, a generosity that felt almost foreign to him now. He couldn't shake the feeling that meeting her had changed something inside him. His phone buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. It was his assistant, Clara. "Sir, you asked me to look into her. I have the file." Victor took a steady breath, his fingers tapping against the leather seat. "Send it to me." By the time he arrived at his penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, the folder was already waiting on his desk. He sat down and flipped it open. Maggie Harper, 28 years old. A waitress at Haven Street Diner for the past 5 years. Barely making ends meet. No family, no college degree. But despite her struggles, she had a history of helping others, even when she had little herself. She was the kind of person who did the right thing when no one was watching. Victor's chest tightened as he read. He recognized that kind of life, the struggle, the quiet sacrifices. And yet, she had chosen kindness over bitterness. He respected that more than he cared to admit. The next morning, he didn't hesitate. He called Clara into his office. "Find her. I want to meet her." Clara raised an eyebrow but didn't question him. By noon, the meeting was arranged. When Maggie arrived at Grayson Technologies, she looked completely out of place in the sleek, modern lobby. Her faded jeans and worn-out sneakers stood in stark contrast to the polished glass walls and tailored suits around her. Victor greeted her with a firm handshake, keeping his curiosity in check. He led her into his office, where silence hung between them for a moment before he finally spoke. "I saw what you did last night," he said, his voice calm but deliberate. Maggie shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her eyes wide with confusion. I don't understand. What do you mean?" Victor's gaze softened slightly. "Tommy, my son." He let the words sink in. "You took care of him. You didn't ask for anything in return. You just helped him. I've been thinking about it all night." Maggie's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected this meeting, let alone the weight behind his words. Maggie hadn't realized who Tommy's father was when she offered him that sandwich. She hadn't known the man watching from across the street was a billionaire. Now, sitting in his sleek office, she shifted uncomfortably, unsure where this conversation was headed. "Look, I didn't mean to overstep," she said, her voice hesitant. I couldn't leave him out there in the rain. He's just a kid. That's exactly why I'm here," Victor interrupted, leaning forward. "I want to give you the chance to do more. I want you to work for me, Maggie. I'm offering you a job at Grayson Technologies." Her jaw dropped. "A job?" she stammered. "What kind of job? I don't know anything about tech. I'm just a waitress." "I don't need you to know about tech," Victor said firmly. "I need someone with a heart like yours. Someone who does the right thing when no one is watching. That's rare. You're rare." He paused, searching her face, waiting to see if she understood what he was truly offering. "I can offer you 6 figures, full benefits, the works. But more than that, I can offer you a chance to change your life." Maggie's mind raced. This couldn't be real. She had been barely scraping by, struggling to pay rent, skipping meals just to survive. And now, a billionaire was handing her an opportunity she'd never even dared to dream of. Her hands trembled as she shook her head. "I don't understand. Why me?" Victor's expression hardened slightly, his voice steady and serious. "Because you saw my son. Not my name. Not my money. You saw him as a person, not some rich man's kid. That's rare. And I need someone like that on my team." Maggie's heart pounded. The world around her seemed to spin. This wasn't a dream, this was real. A chance to escape the life she'd been stuck in. A chance to start over. But was she ready? Could she walk away from everything she knew and step into a world so unfamiliar? The weight of uncertainty pressed down on her as she stared at the man across from her. He was offering her a lifeline. The only question was, would she take it? The days that followed were a blur. Maggie's thoughts kept circling back to that meeting with Victor, to the envelope he had handed her, to the promise of a future she had never imagined. She had spent so long just trying to get by. Now, for the first time, she had a chance to do more than just survive. Maggie had spent most of her life feeling invisible, blending into the background of her own existence. But now, Victor Grayson, a man who had built an empire with his own hands, was offering her a seat at the table. A chance to change everything. Excitement bubbled inside her, but so did doubt. She was just a waitress from the wrong side of town. Could she really step into this world? A world of billion-dollar deals, polished boardrooms, and ruthless ambition? She spent sleepless nights pacing her small apartment, trying to make sense of it all. Then, in the middle of the night, her phone buzzed. It was Clara, Victor's assistant. "Maggie, are you available tomorrow? Victor wants you to meet the team. He's serious about this." Clara's tone was professional as always, but Maggie sensed something else, perhaps a hint of disbelief. After a brief pause, Maggie agreed, her heart racing as she prepared for her first day at Grayson Technologies. The next morning, she stood in front of a towering glass building, feeling completely out of place in her worn-out clothes. Maggie was stepping into a world she had never imagined. High-powered meetings, endless emails, and a business environment that felt completely foreign. It was overwhelming, but whenever she felt out of place, she reminded herself why she was here. She thought about Tommy, his smile, the happiness in his eyes when she handed him that grilled cheese sandwich. That simple moment of kindness had led her to this opportunity, and she was determined not to waste it. But things weren't as smooth as she had hoped. Whispers followed her through the halls, subtle glances cast in her direction. Some questioned why she was there, why Victor had hired her. Was she just a publicity stunt? A charity case? She overheard their hushed voices in the break room, and it stung. Still, she didn't let it show. Instead, she focused on learning, working twice as hard to prove she belonged. Then, everything took a turn. One afternoon, Clara approached Maggie's desk, her expression tense. "Maggie, we have a problem," she said in a hushed tone. "There's been a leak. Sensitive company information is getting out. And Victor thinks it might be you." Maggie's heart stopped. "Me? But I barely understand half of what goes on around here." Clara glanced around before leaning in. "It's not just about what you know. Someone saw you talking to a guy from a rival firm last week at Haven Street Diner. The timing looks bad." Maggie's mind raced. She remembered the man, an old regular who had casually asked about her new job. At the time, she hadn't thought anything of it. But now, it was being used against her. A lump formed in her throat. "I didn't leak anything," she whispered. "I swear." Clara sighed. "I believe you, but we need to figure out who did this fast. Victor already has doubts." Just like that, the life Maggie was building felt like it was slipping away. Victor's office had never felt so cold. Maggie stood before him, heart pounding as he studied her with sharp, unreadable eyes. The silence between them was suffocating. "Maggie," he said, his tone steady but firm. "I took a chance on you. I need to know the truth. Did you leak company information?" Her stomach twisted. She opened her mouth, but the words wouldn't come. How had it come to this? She had worked so hard to prove herself, and now she was being accused of betrayal. "Victor," she finally managed, her voice trembling. "I swear I didn't leak anything. I don't even know enough about the business to." "Then how do you explain this?" He slid a folder across the desk. Maggie hesitated before picking it up, her hands shaking. Inside were emails, transcripts, and supposed evidence linking her to the leak. Her breath hitched as she skimmed the documents. None of it made sense. She didn't recognize the names. She didn't recall any of the conversations. I don't know anything about this," she murmured, panic rising in her chest. "I didn't do this." Victor remained silent, his piercing gaze locked onto her. His jaw clenched as if he was battling some internal war. Maggie's thoughts spun. Who would do this to her? Who would frame her? She barely knew anyone at the company. Then, like a flood, realization hit her. "The man at the diner," she blurted. "A regular. He asked me about my job. At the time, I thought it was just small talk. But now, what if he's working with someone from the rival firm? What if this was all planned?" Victor's eyes narrowed. "And you're just mentioning this now?" "I didn't think it was important," Maggie said, her voice gaining strength as she started connecting the dots. "But it has to be him. I don't know how, but I'm sure he's the one who planted the idea, maybe even the information itself. He could have ties to the rival firm, I just don't know for sure." Victor studied her closely, then leaned back in his chair. His expression softened slightly, but his eyes remained sharp. "All right. We'll get to the bottom of this. But I need your help. If you want me to believe you, if you want my trust, we have to find the real leak together." His words hit Maggie hard. Trust. No one had ever really put their trust in her before, let alone given her a chance to earn it. And yet, despite the evidence against her, Victor was offering her that chance now. Determination surged through her. She lifted her chin and met his gaze with confidence. "I'll help you. I won't let anyone destroy what we've worked for." From that moment, the two of them dove headfirst into the investigation, combing through records, following every lead, leaving no stone unturned. And the deeper they looked, the clearer the truth became. Maggie wasn't the one who had betrayed Victor's trust. The real culprit was a senior executive, someone high up in the company who had been leaking confidential information to a competitor. When the risk of getting caught became too great, he set Maggie up to take the fall. With undeniable proof in hand, Victor didn't waste a second. The next morning, the executive was fired on the spot. For Maggie, the relief was overwhelming. The weight of the accusation was finally gone. She had been telling the truth all along, and now everyone knew it. She could finally breathe again. But even with the truth out in the open, there was still something unspoken between her and Victor. She hesitated, unsure of what would come next. Victor's gaze softened slightly as he looked at her, his expression unreadable. Then, in a quiet but sincere voice, he said, "Thank you. You didn't have to do this, but you did. You proved that I wasn't wrong about you." A warmth spread through Maggie's chest. She hadn't just proven herself to Victor, she had proven something even more important. She was worth believing in. "I won't let you down," she promised. And she never did. This version keeps the script engaging, natural, and easy to follow while preserving all details. Let me know if you'd like any further refinements.